I guess the episode is better. It's probably the best episode we've gotten so far. But it still really made me upset. And not because of even the quality at this point anymore, the dialogue, the characters, the acting, none of that stuff. I mean, it's a little bit of a lore thing, but it's more than just that. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that they wanted to show so much of what Peter Jackson didn't do, while also showing or reusing what he did do. But then in doing so, skipping everything that makes those moments so impactful. But yeah, so let's dive into it. We start with Elrond and Galadriel discussing their trip or journey to Eregion. Elrond wants some swordsmen and archers. He asks Galadriel to look for it. There's still more bickering between the two of them. I don't want to do it. You're the lieutenant. You're going to do it. If you don't want to do it, you can just leave. She's like, fine. And then we come across... Oh, I guess we do finally get like a passage of time journey where we actually get a montage. Well, a montage. It's one angle. It's one camera angle, but we do see them traveling. We see some sort of travel for the first time in the show. It's very reminiscent of Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli traveling across Rohan, chasing the Uruks in the Two Towers. It's basically the exact same scene. Then they get to a bridge. Elrond has the brilliant idea that the reason why the bridge is broken is because of a lightning strike, because somehow lightning can just absolutely vaporize an entire bridge. A massive bridge, not just a small one. Well, this bridge is massive. But Galadriel's like, well, it's obviously not lightning because that's stupid. It's Sauron. And then there's more bickering because she's listening to the ring and she thinks this is a bait or a trap and that we shouldn't go a certain way. And Elrond's like, well, we will not be taking guidance from a ring that was never made. So they're heading in a direction to go around the bridge. Then we get to Gandalf and we finally meet Tom Bombadil, which I know people are super excited for. I was super excited to see Tom Bombadil as well. And a lot of it to me was okay. I know that Tom Bombadil is a really hard character to portray in a series, in a show, or just even in the movie, if Peter Jackson wanted to use him. He's a very odd character. He's a very unique character. But it's hard to make him believable and likable and just enjoyable to watch without it just coming across as really weird. Because he is a weird character. So I get that they kind of toned him down a little bit. However, I still wish his poems and songs that he was mumbling to himself, I wish he was actually singing. And and I wish he seemed a little bit more jolly. They nailed his kind of weird kookiness and speaking in riddles kind of thing. I think they nailed that part, but I wish he was just a little bit more jolly and less kind of toned down. And then there was a weird sequence too, where now I guess it was technically a callback to Old Man Willow, where Gandalf is going, or the stranger, because we still don't know he's Gandalf, even though I know he's Gandalf. He goes to a tree branch, and it looks like he's going to take it for his staff, and then the tree eats him. And it's supposed to be a reference, obviously, to Old Man Willow in the Old Forest. However, the way it's done is it makes it look exactly like what Peter Jackson did in the extended edition of The Two Towers, with Merry and Pippin getting eaten by a tree, which Peter Jackson put into the film as a callback to Old Man Willow, because he knows that he didn't put it in the movies, so this is where he was going to fit it in as like a reference to it. So it's like Amazon is using this as it's a reference to a reference, right? Because it's referencing Old Man Willow, but because of how it's being filmed and how the stranger gets eaten by the tree and all the different shots that they use, it looks just like Merry and Pippin getting eaten by the tree. On top of that, of course, they use the same line that Treebeard uses, right? Dig deep, drink water, rest now, or whatever it is. Which is, of course, the exact same line that Treebeard had to save Merry and Pippin, which is just a reference to Tom Bombadil. So it's like we've come full circle, and I just wish it wasn't so copy-paste of what Peter Jackson did. I think it would have landed differently for myself and for other people, because it looks exactly the same, and it feels exactly the same. But yeah, so Stranger gets saved by Tom Bombadil from, I think it's Old Man Ironbark or Old Man Ironwood or something like that, instead of Old Man Willow. Then we go back to the Hobbits, or the Harfoots. We find out that there's Fine after the big desert tornado that blew them away. They come across a new race, I guess, of halflings, and we have the Stoors, which of course are the so-called like the direct ancestors of the Hobbits of the Shire, of Frodo. The Hobbits of the Shire are Stoors, and because they can't call them Hobbits, they're not going to call them Hobbits, they're going to call them Stoors, which is fine, because now we have 2 out of the so-called 3 families or races of Hobbits. We have the Harfoots, we have the Stoors, so the ones that we're missing are the Followhides, which I think, I can't remember if the Harfoots or the Followhides are the ancestors of Smeagol. I think Smeagol was a Followhide, but I don't remember that for sure. So we see very similar aspects of the Hobbits of the Shire. They're gardening, they're living in holes, they have a mayor. They're good with harvesting and all that kind of stuff. And then we cut to the Dark Wizard and the cult there, where one of the desert folk that was caught in the tornado, he survived, and he comes back to the Dark Wizard and just says, yeah, he's gaining his power. We need help. So the Dark Wizard says, fine, I'll deal with the stranger. You deal with the Harfoots or the halflings, because we know where they're going to go. Because I guess the Dark Wizard and the cult are aware of the Stoors and where they're hiding or where they live. So he's sending the desert folk to go. They're trying really hard. They're trying really hard to make the Dark Wizard Saruman. And it's one of those, did Amazon learn from season 1 where they tried so hard to build this mystery around Halbrand, and it was so obvious that it was Sauron, that his first line to Galadriel was something like, looks can be deceiving, not everything is always what you see to it, or not everything is what it seems to believe, something along those lines, which was just obviously talking about Sauron the Deceiver, right? So that was Halbrand's first line to Galadriel. And over time, it just got more and more obvious that it was Sauron, but people didn't believe it was Sauron because they're like, well, it can't be Sauron because that just doesn't fit with the lore. But fun fact, now we know it's Sauron. They're doing the same kind of thing with the Dark Wizard, where they give him one-liners. He calls himself an Istar. Well, actually, no, he doesn't call himself an Istar. Tom Bombadil calls the Dark Wizard an Istar. We're just getting more and more references that he's Saruman, and people are going to say he's not Saruman because it can't be, because it doesn't fit with the world. Amazon didn't learn from their mistakes in the first season with being so obvious and then just revealing the obvious, and they're just going to repeat that, and it's going to ruin the mystery because there's not really a mystery right now. Or they did learn and they're doing the same tactics, but the result will be different, where no, it's not actually going to be Sauron, it'll just be someone different, which I hope is the case. but they're really pushing Saruman, and it becomes more and more clear when Tom Bombadil and the Stranger talk about it, where they reference that he's a dark power, he's an Eastar, he was like you once. Like Tom Bombadil's referencing how the Stranger and the Dark Wizard are the same. They're both magic users. He came to me for power and magic, and I showed him the ways, but then he went to the dark side, basically. And on top of that, he looks very similar. The Dark Wizard looks very similar to Saruman. It's the same hair. It's the same like beard style. It just, I don't know. Every time I see him and we learn more and more about him, it's more and more obvious that it's Saruman. So if it's not Saruman, they're kind of just doing this weird, haha, tricked you, it's actually Radagast, even though every clue we gave you meant Saruman. So I don't think that'll land very well for the audience, in my opinion. There's also this weird moment where the Stranger's taking a bath in Tom Bombadil's house, and he hears Tom talking to some sort of female, because we hear a female voice. Now, fans of the books will immediately assume that this is Goldberry, as it should be. However, when the Stranger questions Tom Bombadil about this, he deflects it by saying there's no one else here, which is really weird to me. Like, I don't know why we're trying to hide that it's Goldberry, and then are we implying that Goldberry isn't real, that it's all in Tom Bombadil's head? What kind of implications does that have for the books? I don't know, it was really weird. And then there was the only other creature that lives in Tom Bombadil's house is this sheep, this baby lamb. And I'm like, I had this split-second thought of, is the lamb Goldberry? Is that what we're trying to hide here right now? It was a split-second thought, and I really hope that's not the case, but I don't know. They talked about Goldberry, and then the next thing we see is a lamb. Like, that's a little weird, but okay, we'll move on from that. So, and that's kind of that's the end, so to speak, of Tom Bombadil and the Stranger for now. We don't see them again in the rest of the episode. It's just Tom Bombadil kind of enhancing the Stranger's story and trying to tell him who he is and who he's meant to become. He's supposed to fight Sauron and the Dark Wizard, which is another line that's like, you gotta fight Sauron and Saruman. It's your purpose here. The fact that they're pushing so hard that the Dark Wizard is Saruman just makes no sense to me whatsoever, because then it's like, okay, if the Dark Wizard is Saruman, which just goes against the lore and that Saruman was actually a good guy, but let's ignore that for a second. We'll set aside the lore here and just go with the movies and Rings of Power. So then what Amazon is saying is that, okay, the Dark Wizard is Saruman. He's a bad guy right now. At some point, he has to turn good because Gandalf goes to Saruman in the Fellowship of the Ring, and asks about what to do with the One Ring and seeks guidance about Frodo and all of that. And then Saruman in that moment reveals that he's evil. So is Amazon saying that he's going to go from evil to good to evil? Are they implying that everyone's memory gets wiped because Gandalf and Saruman are going to forget about their encounter in the desert? I don't know. It's just really weird. And that's ignoring all the lore stuff. That's literally just looking at the books themselves, or the movies themselves in the show. So we'll have to see how that goes. And then we go back to Elrond and Galadriel and the elves, and they come across the Barrow-Downs. And we got the Barrow-wights. And they look amazing. There's no doubt about that. They look great. They look cool. I liked that they threw in the poem or song that the dead sing. I love that you can only defeat them with their own weapons. I like that. So all of that is great. But I have two major problems with this. The first one is that at this point now, the entire episode has just felt like this is everything that was in the Fellowship of the Ring that Peter Jackson didn't do, right? You didn't get to see Old Man Willow, so we have our version of it. You didn't get to see Tom Bombadil. Well, here's Tom Bombadil. You didn't see the hobbits get caught in the Barrow Downs with the Barrow-wights. Well, here's some Barrow-wights. It just felt really forced in that way. Yeah, like poking fun or showing everything that Peter Jackson didn't do, while yes, like it kind of flowed, but ultimately the Barrow Downs is going to have, it has no connection to the rings, so why does it need to be here? They're trying to connect Tom Bombadil to Gandalf's story, which I get. It makes more sense than the Barrow Downs. The Old Man Willow reference was just felt really forced, because it's like, well, you didn't need to have it. You're just putting it in there because Old Man Willow and Tom Bombadil. And I also feel like we're leading into a scourging of the Shire, but we'll get into that later. So the second reason why this whole Barrow Downs sequence really bothers me, it's a bit of a lore thing, but it's more than that. It's more about the story and the history of the Barrow Downs. So yes, technically the Barrow Downs shouldn't be here yet because it's more of a Third Age thing than a Second Age thing. But it's the history of the Witch King is what creates the Barrow Downs. After Numenor's fall, and we have kind of Gondor and Arnor. Arnor in the north builds Fornos, they build Amon Sul, you have Annuminus and Evendim, and kind of like the growth of Bree and all of that. They, of course, then built, I don't know if it was technically called the Barrow Downs at that point, but they built their cemetery. They're a place for a graveyard. They're dead, right? The dead lords and ladies, kings and queens, soldiers, warriors, everyone that has died, they put in a massive burial site to honor them all. And during the fall of Arnor, with the Witch King, coming down from the north and destroying Fornos, Amon Sul, Annuminus, and almost essentially winning, during this process, he corrupts the Barrow Downs and uses Arnor's dead against them. The Witch King is the origin of the Barrow Downs and the Barrow-wights. The reason why the Barrow Downs is the way it is because of the Witch King. And it's, to me, that's such a cool story element, because it's one of those like everlasting scars or wounds upon the land. When Frodo and the hobbits get to the Barrow Downs, this is thousands of years after the Witch King's destruction of Arnor. There's still everlasting effects to that. And I just think that's really cool, because there's not a lot of elements like that in Middle-earth, where the stain of evil will last there forever, essentially. Corrupting the lands and using the dead to turn against Arnor, and all of that story and all of those battles and characters that are involved in that moment. It's just so sad to see all of that go away. Because Amazon has decided, we want to put the Barrow Downs in our show because Peter Jackson never did it, and it'll be cool for the fans to see it. Which, I get, but you're taking away all of this rich history. And it's just sad to see that go. It breaks a whole bunch of lore, but it's not about the lore-breaking aspect. It's the fact that all of this history is being wiped away. That would be so cool to see. So, I don't know. I had, as cool as it looked, I was struggling with it a lot, because the Witch King's story is really cool to me and I care about it a lot, and I feel like we're just kind of wiping a big part of it away. So it bothered me in that way. After the Barrow Downs, we then go to Isildur and Estrid and Arondir, and they're still trying to look for Theo. And as it's revealed that Theo's kind of stuck in a tree cage because he was captured by Ents. On their little journey to find Theo, they get stuck in some mud, and Arondir has kind of figured out that Estrid's evil, or works for Adar, so he's kind of sending her away and not trusting her, keeps her locked up kind of thing in shackles. Isildur falls in the mud. Arondir tries to save him. He gets pulled into the mud. Estrid now has a choice to leave them to die, change her path and save them. She decides to save them, of course, because Estrid and Isildur are going to get married. We know this because Amazon keeps posting images of them on TikTok and Facebook and all the social medias, and they constantly just say, we're shipping them together. So we know they're going to get together. Otherwise, why is Amazon trying to do all this marketing around them? But yeah, so inside this mud was actually some worm creature, which was, I guess, kind of cool to see. They use another line from Peter Jackson's movies of just demons and foul. There are many more foul things than orcs that live in the deep places of the world. And Arondir has a very similar line of, like, there are many nameless and other creatures that live in the deep places of the world, when in response to what the heck was that worm thing. But it was a cool creature. Like, I don't hate it. It was cool to see. I always like seeing new monsters. And then we go back to the Harfoots and the Halflings, and the desert people arrive. We're kind of setting up, which I feel is a Scourging of the Shire scenario, where these desert people are going to show up with the Dark Wizard and kind of burn the villages and all their food, and it's going to force them to migrate. And they're going to use it as a reference to the Scourging of the Shire. I think it'll be cool to see, but it feels another one of those, well, Peter Jackson didn't do it, so we're going to do it. But at least it'll kind of fit more with the story that Amazon's created, and it will feel a little bit less forced than something like the Barrow Dance. So yeah, the desert people are here threatening them and like, hey, where are these two Harfoots that showed up? We're like, I don't know, we have no Harfoots here, we're all stewards. Like, okay, well, we're going to keep an eye out on you, you be careful. And then we go back to Isildur and crew in the Southlands, and they finally find the Ents, and we see them. They look great. They're cool. Arondir has a good, tries to build a good relationship with them, and it's a good scene. It's very elfy. It's an elf-like scene, caring about nature and the Ents' response to this. So that's all great. And then they learn to release Theo, so Theo's saved. Arondir now refers to Theo as Lord of Pelargir, or Pelargir, and I guess he has the power to do so, and I didn't know that. And now that Theo's now is considered Lord of Pelargir, I guess that technically means he now qualifies to be a Nazgul. I know there was a bunch of fan theories in the first season that Theo was going to be a Nazgul, the Witch King, or the Mouth of Sauron. I never thought any of those theories could be true, because it's like, well, he's a kid and he's not a king, and the Nazgul and the Witch King have to be a king. That's one of their basically qualifications, right? Like, the rings were given to kings of men. So now that Theo is given the title of Lord of a region, he is now technically a king, so to speak. So yeah, he's qualified to be a Nazgul, and he could be given a ring in the future. So we'll have to see how that goes. I hope they do a big jump in time, though, because I don't think Sauron's going to give a kid a ring when he's like 12 years old. So we'll have to see how that goes. Especially because he's so much shorter than everyone, so we're just going to have this tiny Nazgul compared to all the other ones. Where we get back to the elves, they come across Adar and his orc crew that are marching towards Eregion. Galadriel says that they should fight them. They don't want to fight them. They see the orcs are trying to shoot a horse. They keep missing the horse, and by pure coincidence, by not hitting the horse, one of the arrows hits an elf. And this starts a little bit of the fight or the encounter. Before Galadriel marches into battle, she saves the elf that was shot by healing him. And they're referencing that it's because of the ring. However, Galadriel's ring does not have the power to heal, or it's not one of its properties of the ring. Her ring gave her the kind of the gift of foresight, which is why she's getting all these visions. It helps her build, maintain, and conceal Lothlorien. So it has no healing properties tied to it, but they're referencing that the ring is what's causing his healing. This kind of upsets Elrond because he doesn't of course trust the rings, but here we are. And then Galadriel gives him the ring so that she can go fight because she's going to get captured, but she doesn't want them to have the ring. Fair enough. Elrond's ring is what heals. It's the blue ring, which is Gil-galad has that ring right now. The ring that Gil-galad is wearing is the one that has the healing properties, as well as some elemental properties, such as summoning water horses on the river that we see in the Fellowship of the Ring movie and the books. But the ring that Elrond was given by Galadriel is not that ring. I hope Elrond isn't the one that keeps this ring. It should go back to Galadriel, and Gil-galad should give Elrond his ring. But we'll have to see how that goes. They did just mess up that small detail, though, that Galadriel's ring does not heal. It is Elrond's ring, and that is also why Elrond is able to heal Frodo after he's stabbed by the Witch King on Amansul, or Weathertop. So Galadriel marches into battle. Girl boss, badass moment. She kills a bunch of them. She then gets chained by Adar and pulled off her horse, and the episode kind of ends there. So yeah, we're halfway through the season now. It was a better episode. The season has been faster paced. The quality has been hit and miss. The props have been pretty poor. Costuming has been really hit and miss. This overall story has been hit and miss. I get that we're leading to the dwarves getting all their rings, and then we're leading to the Siege of Eregion. But then after that, I guess we get the men get their 9 rings next season, I guess. But after that, I don't know where we're going is the problem. Like, we're setting up this season, but it's like that. It's setting the overall arcing story that I don't know what's happening. I don't know where we're going from here after this point. So I'll be curious to see where that goes and how much of a time jump we're going to do, because we're still, I know the timeline's a bit iffy, but we're still maybe 200-ish, 150 to 200 years away from Sauron losing his hand by Isildur. I don't know. I don't know where we're going to go from here. One thing that I'm looking forward to, and I really hope this is the case, because I think this is something that Amazon should do. And if they're not going to do it, I'm going to be extremely disappointed, because this is an opportunity for Amazon to kind of show their own version or their own take on a story that Tolkien did write about, but didn't go into massive depth about. So Isildur is in the south, right, in Gondor, and he's kind of saving all of these wildmen, so to speak. I really hope these wildmen become the Oathbreakers. I really hope that's what we're leading to, because I think that's a great idea. So we'll have to see where that goes. But I would love to see Isildur work with these people, build a bond with them. They start looking at him as a king, and then he kind of does this whole like pledge allegiance thing. If I should ever call upon your aid, will you help me? Yes. And then we get to the whole, okay, I need you to help. And they're like, no, just kidding. So then he curses them until they fulfill their oath. So I would love to see that progression in that story, but we'll have to see. But yeah, that's kind of the end of the episode there. We'll see what happens next week. Or I guess this week, technically. We're getting really close to the battle, but I feel like there's going to be 1 or 2 filler episodes before we actually get there. So we'll have to see how it goes. But thank you for watching. As always, I appreciate you watching, and please leave your comments, and let's talk about our thoughts and feelings about the season, about the show in general. It's definitely better for me, but it could still do a lot of improving in a lot of aspects of the show. So we'll see how that goes. But thanks for watching again, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.